Hey guys, it's Michelle here, and today I wanted to do a quick tutorial for you on how I do my Epsom salt. And you can see it's got a little bit of a green tint to it. I'm going to show you guys how I did that, how I colored it. I will tell you, salt takes a very, very, very minimal amount of water. So if you use a colored, like a food dye or anything that's a liquid, just know that that amount of liquid is going to count towards your water content that you use for your salt. So what I did was use a powdered, well, you could use a powdered pigment, but what I actually did was just use a piece of sidewalk chalk and my sifter. And I'm going to add just a little more color to show you guys. Basically, all I'm doing is just grading this off with my sifter. And you'll see that it's going to add like a powder, almost like you're adding a powdered pigment to it. And this is going to give you color without adding any water content to your salt. So if you want it really vibrant, you know, you can add quite a lot of powdered pigment. But you guys can see how easy that is and cheap, because you guys know sidewalk chalk you can attain very cheaply. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and mix. I always like to mix the color in first before I add my water. And like I said, you can add as much powder pigment as you want to get it the color that you want. You can see this is just a really pretty green. I know a lot of times it's hard to pick that up on camera, but it is really a really pretty green. Now, like I said, for Epsom salt, it's going to take very, very, very little water. And it's all about how much salt you have to how much water you use. This is a fairly good amount of salt. So you'll use a little more water. But it also depends on the container you're going to put it in, and everything of what you're going to use, how hard you're going to pack it. If you're going to use something small, like that's not very deep, very gently pack it and use very little water, because that's going to turn out hard. If you're going to use a bigger container, like I'm going to use this container here, it's kind of like basically like a meal prep container. So it's going to be a lot thicker, so you can pack it a little bit harder. But the harder you pack it, the harder it's going to be to break apart, especially if you have a lot of water in it. And what I like to do so that I don't overwater it, is to use a spray bottle. You can get these really cheaply at like Walmart or Dollar Tree or anywhere like that. And that way you can easily control your water content without trying to pour and be really careful pouring. I have a tendency to where if I'm pouring, I always over pour. And you'll see in some upcoming videos that I over poured on some of my salt. And I even second guessed myself and oversprayed one, and it came out harder than I wanted. So don't second guess yourself. Use very, very, very little water. So to start with this, there we go. Got full sprays. We're just going to add a few like that on the top, and you can see how that kind of darkened up. And now we're just going to mix that in. And I know since it was sprays, it doesn't seem like very much. But trust me, it does not take a lot to get salt to stick together. Because think about, sometimes when you get a bag of Epsom salt and there's already salt stuck together in your bag, I mean, that's just pulling water content out of the moisture out of the air. So it doesn't take a lot to get it to hold together. And you can see how this is darker than it was when we started. That is a good indication that you've got enough water in it. And I actually think this is going to be enough water to hold together. You can tell the texture of the salt kind of changes once you add the water, and you can feel a little moisture in it. So this, I'm not going to second guess myself. This feels like enough water. So I know the last time I second guessed myself and put more sprays in, and it came out hard as a rock. You guys will see, because I'll probably post that before I post this tutorial, because I'm going to let, excuse me, I'm going to let this dry and then show you guys the final result all at the same time. And this is probably only going to take a few days to dry. The last salt I did was probably dry within a day or two. So salt, since you add so little water, it does not take long at all. And what I'm doing is just trying to make sure the water I sprayed on top is fully incorporated throughout the whole batch of salt. And then we're going to transfer it into our bowl. And like I said, if you're going to use something shallow that's really little, just barely pack it in there. Because if you really pack salt hard, it's going to turn out really hard. So just keep that in mind when you are making your salt projects. All right, and like I said, we're just going to put it in this container here, and then I'm going to pack it down. And even though it's a big container, I'm still not going to pack it super extra hard. I might have too much for this container. If we do, then I'll do a few of those little bricks. But let's see what we have here. Actually, I'm going to take a little of this out. Okay. And you guys, this isn't going to pack together like you would normally have a project packed together. And I'm just gently putting pressure across the top of this. You'll still see the salt seems kind of loose, but that's quite okay. As long as it's kind of sitting and you can feel it packing down, then you're good to go. And like I said, I'm not second guessing myself this time and adding more water. One thing you can do if you want kind of a crispier top, if you're using a spray bottle, is you can give a few sprays over the top. If you want it to kind of have a nice crispy crust, you don't have to do that. I do it sometimes I don't. But that's all there is to this. And I just barely tapped up the top to kind of set it. And that's it. We're going to just let that dry. Like I said, it'll probably just be a few days at the most. You'll be able to tell when it starts to get hard. In a bigger container, I actually just leave mine in this to dry. I don't turn them out because it dries so quick. So I'll leave this one probably sit at least 2 or 3 days just to be certain it's set. But I wouldn't be surprised to find this already hardening up by tomorrow, because salt dries really quick. Now I'll go ahead and put some salt in these because I've got still some left, and we'll try it and see what happens. I'll just lightly pack it and see what we get from doing these. Okay, guys, now I'm just barely even touching these, just kind of smoothing out the top, just kind of to set it a little bit. I had just about enough salt to do almost 3. Now we'll see how these set, and I will give you guys an update. But salt takes barely any time to dry, so like I said, within a few days these will probably be ready. And we will see. We'll do our experiment, see how our big slab comes out, and then how these little ones come out. And I will give you guys an update. But basically, that's all I do for the Epsom salt. If you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to let me know. And I hope this helps you guys and makes you want to try Epsom salt.